Hello, so today's video is going to be a collective haul video. I'm going to talk about every fragrance that's come into my life over the last 6 months and just tell you what I think of it. Is it something I'm absolutely loving, enjoying every moment of, or is it something I'm just not sure about and maybe that fragrance might be headed towards a declutter? If you haven't seen me before, I'm Claire. I make videos all about fragrance and I absolutely love talking about perfume science, perfume history, perfume psychology, but I also just do some straight perfume reviews. I'm doing a little series on perfumers and their most famous fragrances. And I also absolutely love doing perfume tags. So if that kind of thing interests you and you haven't already subscribed, then please do consider subscribing. And if you are already subscribed, then thank you so much for getting me to 15,000 subscribers. This is a number that I never ever thought that I would achieve. So thank you so much. Also, if you do really like this kind of content, then please do press the like button because that really helps me to know which types of videos you appreciate. So let's go back to December 2024 because there are a few that came in just after my last collective haul video that I need to include in this one. So at the end of 2024, I won an Instagram giveaway and I was so pleased to win this because the prize was any Memo Paris fragrance of your choosing. I love prizes like that, but I also don't like them because I'm a very indecisive person. It takes me a long time to choose sometimes. So I was looking at their entire range and I was sort of, considering Siwa, I was considering Winter Palace, I was considering Kedu, and in the end, I went for Marfa. So Marfa is the most beautiful green feeling tuberose fragrance. It's got some orange blossom, which adds to the greenness, and it's also got some agave, and that gives it a real nice, cool freshness. And then really in the dry down, you get more of a kind of creaminess to it. It goes almost coconutty with the sandalwood and the vanilla in the dry down. Just a really gorgeous fragrance. I've been loving this one. This one's going absolutely nowhere. Been absolutely loving it over the summer, and I think actually this could really add some sunshine to the winter as well. So that's Memo Marfa. So along with my full bottle of fragrance with Memo Marfa, I also got sent an extra 5ml sample, which was really generous of Memo. And they sent me the accompanying fragrance from the same range. So this is from the Fleur Bohème range. And this one's called Madurai. So Madurai is a peach fragrance. And peach is something that I generally don't get on with too well in fragrances, but I've been really trying to find peach fragrances that I love. So I was really pleased to get to try this one. So this is an ambery style peach to me. It's quite syrupy, quite sweet. And there's also some jasmine and then there's a musk. And I say the musk is more of a 90s style musk. This whole fragrance really makes me think it's a bit 90s. It smells kind of orange to me as well. I'll quite happily use up my 5ml of this. I have enjoyed wearing it. I've had a compliment when wearing this one as well. I just don't think this is something that I would choose to buy in a full size, but I am enjoying having the 5ml. So that's Madurai. The next fragrance was a Christmas present, and John at Scent & Snowdrops gave me this for Christmas. And I was really happy to get this one because I've been wanting it for a long time. And this one is Lush's 29 High Street. So 29 High Street is a citrusy fragrance in the beginning. It begins with lemon and lime, and then it goes into sort of tropical florals, so ylang ylang, also some jasmine, very prominent in this fragrance, but it sort of smells somehow more fruity than floral. And then as it dries down further, it goes into something that begins to smell more like a soap or a bath bomb. I mean, really the idea of the fragrance is that it's mimicking the smell of the Lush shop. So 29 High Street was the original address of Lush when it first started out as a business. Absolutely adore this fragrance, and I really like the soapy clean aspect of this. I think this fragrance is actually quite hard to come by because I think to buy it you have to go to a Lush store. You can't buy it online. That's my understanding anyway. But yeah, really pleased to have this one. Been wearing it quite a bit, even though it doesn't look like I've used much of it. It is just a really strong fragrance, very punchy, very long lasting. So that's Lush's 29 High Street. So in January, I didn't buy any full bottles of fragrance, which is astounding for me. And I ended up buying a couple of sample sets instead. So I bought one from Goldfield & Banks, which I've made a review video on. And then I also bought another one from État Libre d'Orange, which I haven't made a review video on. So I will do at some point, but that was January. So in February, I saw a fragrance that was being discontinued and I had a bit of FOMO. I felt like I was going to be missing out if I didn't buy a bottle of this. So I ended up buying a little bottle of Kayali's Déjà Vu White Flower 57. And this fragrance I actually bought with some cereal. It was on a discount website where I buy cereal from, breakfast cereal. But anyway, so this one, I think it's now gone from the Kayali website, so I assume it really has been discontinued and they won't be bringing it back. But this one I'd had the hair perfume of, and do you know what? I'm just not very good when there's an alternative format of a fragrance. I'm not someone who is going to, put hair perfume on. It just doesn't even crop up in my thought process. I was intrigued because I love white florals and I thought maybe this is the Kayali fragrance for me. So really what I didn't realise about this one was how peachy it is. Again, this is a very peachy fragrance. It's quite a syrupy and sweet peach, this one. And it's along with some white florals. So the jasmine is really the prominent thing for me, but I think tuberose is also listed. I do get a bit of tuberose, but I wouldn't say it's, the more dominant of the two notes. Also, this fragrance reminds me of Azzaro's Wanted Girl by Night. It's very, very syrupy, very sweet. I don't know, I guess it's the fruitiness that's maybe reminding me of that fragrance. But as this dries down further, I get reminded of Vanilla 28. There's definitely the same type of vanilla in this fragrance that's being used in Vanilla 28. I see a definite parallel in the dry down. So yeah, I like this one. I don't love this one, but I am pleased to have tried this one just before it's gone. So that's Kayali's Déjà Vu White Flower 57. So also in February, I won another Instagram giveaway, and this fragrance arrived on my birthday. It was like another present. And this one was Naxos by Xerjoff. This fragrance definitely was not on my to buy list. It's something that I really had very little interest in before I won it. But actually, having tried it more, I can definitely see why this one's so popular. So this one, I think, Fragrantica's niche fragrance of all time, best niche fragrance of all time, I can see why it won that category because it's very mass appealing. It's not really got anything edgy or different or difficult about it. It's a very easygoing, soft feeling, but still quite loud if you want it to be kind of fragrance. This is something that I don't spray too many sprays of because I'm aware that I could knock people out with it. But actually, if you only spray once or twice, it's quite soft and pillowy. So this to me opens quite herbal. It's got some lavender. There's also some cinnamon here, but the cinnamon again is very soft and very just warming really. Then as it dries down, you get more of the honey coming in and more of the tobacco, but definitely the honey way outweighs the tobacco to me. And there's also lots of tonka here. It's quite almondy to me. And really that's, just makes for a very soft, pillowy fragrance overall. But it's still quite sweet and easygoing. And there's a bit of citrus in the beginning, but that really dissipates into the dry down. I just have really been enjoying this one. I don't wear it that often, this time of year, but in the winter time, I did reach for this quite a few times considering the size of my collection. I think this fragrance has really opened my eyes to trying a few more from Xerjoff. I have had a few samples from Lizzie, but yes, I really was not expecting to keep this one. I was expecting that this would just not be something that I would love, but I am really enjoying it. So it's staying in my collection at least for now. So that's Xerjoff's Naxos. So February and then into March kind of went by with a bit of a blur for me, but in late March I ended up buying one fragrance that I just happened to be in store. I was in TK Maxx and I saw this one on the shelf and I'd always wanted to try it, and I just finished my bottle of Agent Provocateur Fatal Intense. So I was looking for that kind of sweet, fun kind of style of fragrance to replace that bottle I just used up in my collection, and I just went for it. So this one is Lolita Lempicka's Sweet. So I've got this one on my tray this month and I'm just not sure about this fragrance. There's something here that I'm just not loving. But there are aspects to this that I really do enjoy. So if I sniff this out of the bottle, I really love the smell of it. But when I've applied it, I think it's the powderiness in the dry down that I'm just not sure about. I think it's the cocoa maybe. Not entirely sure what it is about this fragrance. It's kind of dry feeling after a while, and that's what I'm not particularly loving. But initially, it's got a really strange cherry as well, and that also is something I can't really work out. But also, this one just has terrible longevity. I can get maybe about 3 hours out of this, and then it's kind of gone. Love the bottle, love the smell out of the bottle, but just I don't think this one's going to stay in my collection long term. There's just something here that I'm just not sure about. So that's Lolita Lempicka's Sweet. So also in March, I got sent a fragrance in PR. It was from Mabelle O'Rama. So I'd been registered on her newsletter because I'd seen she'd got a new fragrance coming out, and her newsletter had gone to junk and I'd missed the samples. And then she contacted me and I felt awful. But anyway, she offered me a travel size of her fragrance and I was just over the moon because I'd really wanted to try it, but I was really scared of the notes. So this one is Phoenix Flame. And I shouldn't have been scared because I feel like Mabel could make a fragrance based around cow dung and I'd probably absolutely love it. She's just so talented. There's something amazing about how she puts the fragrances together. Forbidden Bloom and also Lunar Dust, I also just really enjoy. And I think her fragrances are just getting more confident. You know, Lunar Dust was quite a quiet, ethereal feeling fragrance. Forbidden Bloom was a little bit more sexy, a little bit more fruity, and just had a little bit more of a confidence about it. And this one, again, is just another level up. This one is just really hot, fiery, and the sumac is just a really different kind of route to take and really reflects Mabel's heritage because I think she's of Lebanese origin, which I think really lends a different aspect. So the sumac here, as I've said, is quite fiery. It feels quite hot initially, but it's also got a slight smokiness. I cook a lot with sumac and I absolutely love sumac in food, but I just wasn't sure how this would come off in a fragrance. But actually, as this dries down, it really becomes very cozy feeling. There's lots of resins in this fragrance and you get that kind of citric feeling resin, and you also get a more powdery resin as this dries down further. I just think this fragrance is very striking, and I think, you know, initially I was worried that this one just wouldn't be for me, that I wouldn't want to smell this on me, but maybe I'd want to smell this on somebody else. That kind of feeling. I'm perfectly happy to wear this. I think I smell amazing in this. And I'm really grateful to Mabel for sending me this. And I would recommend this to, not to everybody for sure, because it's not that kind of mass appealing fragrance. That's not what this is. This is a fiery, intense, you know, just very striking, different fragrance. I've seen on Fragrantica this is being compared to things like, I can't remember what the fragrance is, that one from Tom Ford, the lacquer one, nothing like it. It's also compared to Oud for Greatness, nothing like it. So I just take the Fragrantica suggestions as it smells like with a pinch of salt, because this to me is better than both of those fragrances. So that's Mabelle O'Rama's Phoenix Flame. So now we're on to April, and April was a time when I was deciding what to do with some vouchers that I had for a particular store. I'd had these vouchers for years and I'd been debating which of the Diptyque fragrances to go for, and in the end I went for Orphéon because Orphéon was my first true love from Diptyque, and I just felt like that's the one that I wanted. I felt like I was going to be disappointed if I went for Fleur de Peau or, you know, any of the others in the range really. So Orphéon, I've not really been reaching for from this bottle. I've still got a few samples from before when I bought this bottle, and I'm still using those up because it's quite a strong fragrance. But this fragrance for me is a very difficult one to describe. So it starts off kind of peppery, it's quite clean smelling, it's quite fresh smelling. It makes me think of sort of cedarwood forests, pine cones really is the smell I get with this fragrance initially. But there's also quite a greenness to it. It makes me think of geranium. It's like that cross between rose and geranium. And there's also quite a pepperiness here. So as this dries down, the rose or geranium, whatever it is, begins to smell like a slightly deeper version of the rose that's in Flora Botanica by Balenciaga. And there's also that kind of similar aldehyde feel. It's very much more of like a liquid detergent kind of aldehyde than a bar soap kind of aldehyde. It's definitely got more of a bubbly feel to me. This fragrance in the final dry down is quite powdery. It's almost makeup-y. Then there's something magical that happens in the middle that transforms it from the kind of fresher feel to this more powdery feel in the far dry down. I love this one. I've worn it to work a few times since I got this bottle. My samples I've worn to work. And somebody said to me, this smells nostalgic. This smells like something that I've smelt in some other part of my life that I can't quite put my finger on. And I totally get what they mean. I feel like this is a very familiar smell to me in a way, but it's not familiar through the world of perfume. it's familiar through some kind of memory. Orphéon I've been really enjoying, I'd really recommend. I feel like it's probably my favourite purchase of 2025 so far. So yeah, Orphéon by Diptyque. So next up, whilst I was in store buying Diptyque's Orphéon, I tried a few fragrances on the Dior counter, and I was somewhere that doesn't have the Privé range, so I was just trying the main line. And I just sort of realised there are some in the main line of Dior fragrances that I just hadn't bothered to smell. And one of those was Dior Rose and Roses. So Miss Dior Rose and Roses. This fragrance, I just always had it pinned as being boring. I didn't want to smell it because it was just rose, and I wasn't into that. And yeah, I just didn't ever imagine that I would fall in love with this one. But I tried it in store and I just couldn't stop smelling myself. I just thought this smells so pretty, so fresh, and just, yeah, it just made me feel all the joys of spring. I guess it was the right time of year for this fragrance as well. But yeah, I just had to have a bottle. So I bought a partial secondhand because that was much, much cheaper than buying a brand new bottle in store. And I'm really pleased I bought this one because I've been wearing it a lot in the springtime, and it just is something that I really enjoy. So it's just a very simple fragrance, but just really well done. It's a pink feeling rose, quite a fresh rose, but it's also got a muskiness as well. And it's got a slight greenness. There's something slightly green here, but it's nothing too much. It really is more of a pink rose overall. So yeah, I've been loving this one, and I'm really happy to finally have this one in my collection and finally to have tried it. What's taken me so long? So this one is Miss Dior Rose and Roses by Dior. So also during April, I won another giveaway, and this time it was with Jorum Studio. So Jorum Studio are a small Scottish brand that are based in Edinburgh, and I won Unspoken Gesture. And I remember when I won this, I didn't know anything about this fragrance, and I looked up the notes and I thought, wow, that looks so interesting. And this one totally lives up to the note structure. So this is a real fragrance of contrast. So it's bright, it's polleny, it's got some mimosa, but it's also cool, it's got some cardamom, it's slightly milky even, it's nutty. There's lots going on with this. It's ricey even, and it's just got lots of texture. It's very enveloping, it's very huggy. It's one of those kind of almost like savoury gourmands. I think the only thing I could really compare this to would be something like, I can't remember which fragrance it is from Teo Carbonell. If I remember, I'll put it up on the screen. But that kind of savoury gourmand fragrance is along the same lines as this one. But this is very, very different. I would say this was more complex than the Teo Carbonell fragrance. I just think this is something that some people, a select group of people, are going to love. And I think this is something that's totally under the radar and just isn't being discussed as much as it probably should be. And I feel like I want to go and sample all of the rest of the range from Jorum Studio because I feel like this can't be a one-off. It's so inventive, it's so different, and I've really been enjoying this one. And this one is also super long-lasting and really punchy. It really projects. So that's Unspoken Gesture by Jorum Studio. So also in April, I got an email from a new brand completely out of the blue. And if normally when I see a new brand, I just say, no, thank you, not interested, but thank you for your offer kind of thing. And with this brand, I just didn't feel like doing that. I was really interested. I wanted to try their fragrances. I liked their approach, the way they talk to me. You know, quite often brands are quite abrupt. They don't know anything about you. And that personal touch just got me. And it made me want to interact with the brand. It made me want to know more about the brand. So this brand ended up sending me some samples, but they also sent me a full bottle of fragrance of my choice. And I really struggled, obviously, having tried nothing from this brand and just reading the descriptions. I didn't know which one to pick. So I chose the fragrance that I thought would match me best. And the thing that put me off the fragrance that I perhaps should have chosen was the fact that there was saffron listed. But when I tried the sample, I didn't really actually get much saffron from that fragrance at all. So the fragrance I feel I should have chosen would be Love Marriage. So if you've watched my review video, you will probably understand why I think I should have chosen that one. But the one that I did choose was Oud Mangifera. So Oud Mangifera is a fruity, leathery oud. And it's definitely more leathery than it is fruity. And I think when I read the notes, I was imagining something much more fruity than leathery or oudy. But I think this fragrance is very along the lines of something like Orchid Leather by Van Cleef & Arpels. And actually, as this goes along, as I'm trying it more, I discover more of the fruitiness in this. So the blackcurrant, I think, that's listed is popping a little bit more than the mango for me here. And really, I don't think this is something I'm going to reach for on a regular basis. I'm not sure whether this will be a keeper long term, but I don't really have a super leathery, oody fragrance. And I feel like this one's going to stay for now. I'm going to try it during the winter months, see how I get along with it. I might even try it in the heat of summer and see how this reacts to a really hot day, because I am kind of intrigued as to whether this would suit the hot weather or not. This fragrance is meant to reflect an Indian summer, and that's why it's got mango in it, and that's why it's kind of got that, I guess, the oodiness, the heat maybe, I guess, is what that's reflecting. But yeah, this brand I was really pleased to review. As a YouTuber, it does not benefit me whatsoever to review this brand because nobody watches those kinds of review videos. If people haven't heard of the brand, they don't watch it. But I was just so intrigued by this brand and so interested to try them. And I just really wanted to make a review of them because if something interests me, that's something that I want to do. So yeah, Oud Mangifera, perhaps not the one that I perhaps would have chosen in hindsight, but I am enjoying trying this brand and exploring them. So that's Rahasya Fragrances, Oud Mangifera. So on to May now, and May was even busier for me, and I was really stressed because I had some assignments and deadlines and things to be doing in May, and I can really tell that I was stressed by the amount of fragrance that I ended up buying in May. So the first one that I bought in May was really a result of thinking more deeply about Montale. And I tried Mugler, and that one, I can only describe it as a My Little Pony kind of fragrance. If you've not watched my review of that fragrance, you can find it in this video, which I'll link down below. But that fragrance was just so interesting, I guess. It wasn't for me, but it was interesting. And it made me think, am I missing something with Montale? And basically I watched a lot of review videos and I decided that I was going to get one and try it out and, understand it more. And actually Montale secondhand are really affordable. So I thought, if I don't like it, I'll just resell it. So this one is Montale's Sweet Oriental Dream. And the thing that got me about this one was the honey. I really wanted a really deep honey fragrance. And the thing with Montale fragrances is that they're often quite powdery. And they often use vanilla and they often use rose. And this one is no exception. So this opens with a kind of bitter almond feel. And then it goes more into a marzipan-y feel. But it's definitely powdery along with that. And there's a slightly indolic feeling floral perhaps. Or perhaps even a slightly, maybe it's the honey. Maybe, yeah, I think it's probably the honey actually. It's something that's really takes over the fragrance for much of its life. But this one is just overall a very, very strong fragrance. And it definitely has a slightly baby powdery kind of texture to it. I think this one is something I need to try in the winter time because I don't think May, June, July is the time for this fragrance. It just isn't. It needs cold weather, I think, and then I will make a decision on this one. But I'm really a bit torn with this one. Sometimes I wear it and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then other times I'm like, gosh, that's annoying. But I think it's just a very loud fragrance, and I think that's just Montale, isn't it? So yeah, I'm going to try this one out more and see what I think. So that's Montale's Sweet Oriental Dream. So also in May, I happened to come across this fragrance, which is Sacred Mist by Cosmos. So Cosmos is a brand set up by Kate Moss, and I used to wear her celebrity fragrances in the 2000s. I particularly liked her original fragrance, but I'm sure she had absolutely nothing to do with those fragrances, and she probably had nothing to do with this one as well. So this one is a citrusy feeling, aromatic, woody fragrance, but it's got a sweetness to it. And I've seen this one has been compared to Claren's Eau de Innocente, and I would not compare the two. They are very different in feel. This one's far sweeter, far friendlier than the Claren's. I think the Claren's is drier, it's more woody, and it's just got a more herbal aspect to it. It's slightly more bitter overall than this one. I think these two do share the same kind of idea behind them though. They're both treatment mists, they're both more that than they are a fragrance overall. I maybe get about 5 hours out of it if I spray it on my clothes. I've been trying it out this month, it's been on my fragrance tray. and I've actually really enjoyed wearing it. It's something really different in my collection. I feel like this one would really shine when you're wearing it, maybe going to bed, maybe after a bath. It's that kind of winding down, relaxation, spa-like fragrance. Yeah, I've enjoyed this one. I definitely wouldn't pay full price for this. I think full price is £68 for 30ml, which is steep, I think, for this type of fragrance. I paid £20 for this 30ml, and I think that's about right. So that's Cosmos Sacred Mist. So next up, in May, I also bought a few fragrances from Guerlain, and I feel like I could buy many more from Guerlain and still not be satisfied. I just have quite a long wish list, especially from the Aqua Allegoria range. I just really find that range perfect for the summer. So this first one is Oud Yuzu, and it's from the Forte range of the Aqua Allegoria range, which is meant to be a little bit stronger than the normal range. And yes, I would agree with that. So this to me is a very citrusy feeling fragrance to begin with. It's almost like a neroli, but it's definitely got a real freshness to it. But then as this begins to dry down, the oud appears and it becomes a little bit almost like slightly smoky charcoal almost. It's definitely got a dryness to it and a woodiness to it, but it's just really refreshing. I've been really enjoying more citrus leaning fragrances, and before I was never really someone who was that keen on citrus fragrances. I think because the ones that I used to try were laden with ambroxan and I just found that off-putting. But I think I've been trying things that are less sweet and are less punchy. And I think I like that type of citrus a lot more. I also think that Guerlain do citrus really nicely and very realistically, more so than other brands. And I think that's also what I've been enjoying about this line. Oud Yuzu, Forte, and it's from Guerlain. So the other fragrance in this line that I purchased was Orange Soleia, and Orange Soleia is a green feeling, almost orange peel kind of fragrance, but there is a bit of lemon also in the opening, and there's also a greenness to this. Really, I would describe this as a green feeling orange fragrance, but it is just very realistically juicy in the opening. Also, as this dries down, you get some mint, which really does amp up the greenness of this, but it just gives it a nice freshness overall with the petitgrain and then the musk in the dry down as well. And I've really been enjoying this one in the warmer weather. I feel like that lovely green, citrusy, fresh feel stays throughout the whole fragrance. So that's Orange Soleia by Guerlain. So the next fragrance is a bit of random PR. I just couldn't work out what this was. So I got a notification saying that something was on its way. And I was racking my brains trying to think, who have I given my address to recently? Who is this? And it turned out that I'd given my address to Mugler. They'd emailed me back in March. And I just assumed I wasn't getting what they were offering because it had been over 2 months. But then it just turned up randomly. So this fragrance is Alien Extra Intense. And the reason I accepted this PR is because several people back in February when this was released were asking me about this fragrance, and I really wanted to review it at the time, and I know this is a bit late, but I still feel like I want to talk about this one. So this is a tuberose version of Alien. It does have a very strong Alien feel in the first couple of minutes. The jasmine is definitely present, but it really turns more towards the tuberose direction quite early on. It also has a very intense creaminess about it, and actually, the creaminess is slightly vanillic, but it's more about a creamy tuberose than anything else, this fragrance. I think this fragrance is for people who don't like the super strong jasmine, who want something softer. Despite the name, I don't really consider this to be extra intense. I describe this as a creamy fragrance, really. I feel this one is perhaps the best of the Alien range from L'Oreal. I don't feel like this fragrance is something that I would have gone out and bought, but actually I've worn this quite a few times, including to work, and I've had one compliment on it already. I just think this fragrance is something that's quite mass appealing and quite easy. So yeah, that's Alien Extra Intense by Mugler. So the last fragrance that I bought in May was actually one from Narciso Rodriguez, and I tried this one a few years back when it first was released, and I'd loved it, but I just felt like everybody else was hyping it and I didn't want to buy it at the same time as everybody else, which is ridiculous. But anyway, I've bought it now and I'm really enjoying it. So this one is Narciso Rodriguez's Musc Noir Rose. So this fragrance is a syrupy, fruity rose. It's a plum-based fragrance, but but it's also got this really nice vanillic musk as well in the dry down. And it's got a kind of fizz to it almost for me. I think this fragrance is just very likeable. It's very easygoing. It's very strong actually on me, and it seems to last quite a long time. I feel like lots of people complain about the longevity of this one, but for me it lasts pretty much all day. I've really enjoyed this one, and I've been wearing it a lot this month. So it's been on my tray this month. I've worn it to work a few times, and I've worn it around the house as well. Just a winner for me. I think this one is definitely going to stay in my collection. So this is Musk Noir Rose. So the final 3 fragrances are things that have turned up during June, and these are PR as well. So these are from Dossier, and I've said no to Dossier in the past, and they just kept emailing me, and I thought, do you know what, I'm just going to go for it and see what they're like. I did actually have a bottle of Dossier fragrances. So I had Ambery Cherry, which was sent to me by Francis, Happiness Sparkles. I really enjoyed that one. I ended up finishing that bottle quite quickly actually. And I just was a bit curious about the other fragrances, but also I just was a bit hesitant because of what I perceive as their PR machine. And I didn't really want to feel like I was being forced to say certain things. And actually, my experience with their PR has not been great. I feel like they're quite pressurizing. Like they keep on emailing me and giving me like prompts of things to say, and they keep on saying, can we have scripts and can we okay your video? And I haven't signed any kind of contracts, and I've told them that I can return their fragrances to them if they want me to. So I feel like, you know, as an independent YouTuber, I can say what I want about their fragrances, and I shouldn't be beholden to a brand to toe their brand line. So I'm just going to review their fragrances, you know, just in any other way that I would with any other brand, whether they've given me PR or not, because I'm just not that kind of person. I'm just not going to say exactly what they want me to say. So the first one that I chose, because they gave me free range to choose from their lines, and I tried to choose at the 2 different price points. So Dossier have fragrances at £44, and they also have some at £29. So just for a bit of a range, I chose a few at 44 and then one at 29. So the first one I chose, because I really wanted to experience what is, I think, their most popular fragrance, is Floral Marshmallow, which is their Love Don't Be Shy dupe. And the first few times I tried this, I got a slight rubbery feel in the opening, but it does settle down into a really nice, soft, marshmallowy fragrance in the end. I'm not sure whether that rubberiness will eventually go, or whether this is going to oxidise in any way, but yeah, there's something not quite right about the opening of this fragrance for me, and I wouldn't say that it gets to be similar to like Love Don't Be Shy until really the dry down. And Love Don't Be Shy, I think I've really been spoilt because I've tried both formulations from John at Scented Snowdrops, but I don't really feel like I remember them fully. But I remember them being a lot smoother and a lot nicer than this fragrance, so I can't think that my memory is too far away, but I guess I'm not comparing them side by side, so can I really say? Probably I can't, because memories aren't that reliable. But this one doesn't feel spot on, especially in the opening. So yeah, that's Floral Marshmallow. The second one that I tried was Powdery Coconut. So Powdery Coconut is meant to be duping Tom Ford's Solo Blanc. So Solo Blanc is a fragrance that I feel like a lot of people are a bit funny about. Like lots of people absolutely love it, and then others seem to really not enjoy it. I do feel like I know that fragrance quite well, even though I don't own it, because I do try it quite regularly in store. I am like one of those really annoying people on the Tom Ford stands that basically empty the fragrance bottles because I'm just in there so often. But the private line is incredibly expensive, isn't it? I can totally see why somebody would choose a dupe over buying one of those private line Tom Ford fragrances. I guess it's the same with the Kilians. But I do feel like this one is a better dupe than the Kilian one for me, even though the Kilian does get more similar in the dry down. This one seems to be just more generally similar throughout the fragrance, and I like the progression in this fragrance. This one does go through a few different stages, just like the Tom Ford, and I do really appreciate that. I don't feel like this one's as sunscreeny as the Tom Ford either. I think if you do like that Tom Ford, then this is a really kind of good inspired by, whether it's 100% similar or not. Again, I don't own that fragrance. I can't do a side-by-side comparison, so I can't really tell you exactly. The third one I tried was Powdery Mimosa. So this one is a Jo Malone dupe. So Jo Malone, I went into store I think it was sometime either last year or the year before, and I had a consultation there, and they basically told me that I matched most with mimosa and cardamom. So this is what Spicy Mimosa is duping, that Jo Malone fragrance, which is why I chose it. And actually I really like this one from memory again, so how reliable is it? I'm not sure. But it felt like to me with that Jo Malone there was a bit more of a transition, whereas this one's a little bit more linear. But I do think this is a really nice fragrance for not very much money, £29. So yeah, Spicy Mimosa, probably worth trying. So yeah, I'm sure I'll never get sent PR again by Dossier, but I just wanted to share my absolutely honest thoughts with you about those fragrances and not be beholden to saying particular things about a brand when I don't really feel like that should be my job. I haven't signed anything, I'm not being paid, so I can say what I like, can't I? So yeah, those are the 3 dossiers that I chose. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have enjoyed the video, then please press the like button, and please also consider subscribing if you haven't done already. And please let me know if you've tried any of the fragrances I've featured in this video, or which one interests you most. And please tell me your favourite purchase of 2025, or the fragrance you've been loving the most in 2025 so far. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.